Take my life and lift it. Take this fear and shift it. Help my heart to open up and to feel your love. Help me to remember that faith's about surrender. There's nothing we can rise above. Each day with a love of mine, giving thanks and taking time, mindful of the things I do and say. Suddenly my heart takes flight, and I feel that inner light. If darkness comes, all I need to do is pray that you take my life and lift it. Take this fear and shift it. Help my heart to open up and to feel your love. Help me to remember that faith's about surrender. There's nothing I can't rise above. Sights strictly on grace, everything just falls into place. I see God's presence everywhere I go. When I live just one breath at a time, keep my heart open wide. Everything in life, it just begins to flow. So take my life and lift it. Take this fear and shift it. Help my heart to remember the face about surrender. And with your help, I can rise above. Because it's a new dawn. We help each other every minute of every day.
Good afternoon, everyone. Join me in prayer. As we step into this community of new dawn, centered in Aurora, with no boundaries anywhere in the universe, we give thanks for every member of this community, wherever on the planet they are. We know that there is one life, and that life is God. That life is perfect, and that life belongs to each and every soul in the universe. We give thanks for all who express their connection to the divine, whether that's done in this room, virtually, in a forest, in a cathedral, in a mosque, in a synagogue, in a temple, wherever God expresses. We know that life and all the oneness of God is centered in relationships. And today, as Reverend Jen speaks to us about the connection that is here, you and I are we. There is no separation. And we give thanks for that connection to spirit. We give thanks for the one universal mind that connects each and every soul here. We give thanks for our beautiful musician, our beautiful tech team, all of the people who come together to make this service possible. We give thanks to all and for all who will watch this message and take away from it the sense that we are New Dawn, we are global. I release these words in the divine law, where they're made manifest in the section of right here and right now. And together we affirm this by saying, and so it is. Our words of inspiration today, our first set are from Mark Nepo. We usually think of giving as more important than receiving. Yet only by receiving life can flowers grow into their beauty and pollinate the earth. Only by absorbing rain can the earth grow what feeds us. Only by inhaling can our bodies walk us to each other. Only by accepting each other's pain and vulnerability can human strength grow between us. In this way, receiving involves absorbing, inhaling, and accepting the life that flows through us, between us, and around us. These are all deeper forms of listening. From Orison Swett Marden, the more we radiate encouragement and hope, the more they come back to us. Like the sun that lights our world but never seems to lose anything or grow smaller, the more we give, the more we have. And from our founder, the Honorable Dr. Ernest Holmes, if you do not love your brother whom you can see, how can you love God that you cannot see? Human magnetism is not hypnotism. It is the divinity of humanity in expression. And when we learn to convert human passion into divine love, we translate the lower into the higher. We shall have with us a power of attraction against which nothing can stand.
So this past week, I was at King Soopers. Well, if I was going to be completely honest, I was probably at King Soopers 3 or 4 times this past week. But I want to tell you about a specific day and a visit. I walked into King Soopers and I walked through the double doors, and over to the right are the shopping carts or the baskets or whatever you call them. And a gentleman came towards me. I believe he came from inside the store, and he's standing over here. And what I'm doing is I'm like grabbing the carts and I'm trying to pull a cart apart and trying to make sure the wheels all work, and I'm really doing this great activity over here trying to figure out what cart I'm going to use. And this voice says, "Are you trying to find a shopping cart?" And I looked at him and I thought, well, that was an interesting question because there are so many shopping carts here. And I said, well, actually, I'm just trying to find the one that I need to help me carry my groceries. And he said, oh. And so I finally got one kind of apart from them, and I'm pulling it back, and he's still kind of standing behind me. And I turned to go towards the store, and he says, by the way, I happen to be highly attracted to older women. and I looked at him, and I kind of chuckled, and I go, oh? And he goes, do you want to hang out? And I'm like, well, actually what I need to do right now is buy my groceries. So thank you very much. Bye. And I turned and went in the store. Later, as I'm walking through the store, I'm thinking, you know what, I almost feel complimented. Was I complimented? Because that guy mentioned that I'm old. So was that really a compliment? What was that about? But anyway, I got my grocery shopping done, and now I'm ready to leave the store, and I pull over to the self-checkout. And there's some stuff going on at the self-checkout. I pull up, I'm ringing up my groceries. Over to the right of me is a man and a woman, and they're in those automated carts kind of things. They've got that 3-wheeler or 4-wheeler, and they're sitting there, and they've got a basket in front, and they're reaching in the basket, and they're trying to put their groceries up on the dill and ring them out. And the little King Soopers representative is standing there, and something is wrong with their bunch of bananas. It's not ringing up. About the time that machine goes wonky, My machine goes wonky, the machine behind me goes wonky, and the one over here. So now there's about 4 or 5 of us waiting for the single clerk to come help us. And she's got this bunch of bananas that she's grabbed from this man, and she's running over to her cash register, and the woman starts screaming for the manager. And the young woman looks at her and she goes, no, 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 I've got your bananas right here. I'm going to just take you over here. But she hadn't expressed that to them. And so I'm watching the situation with the bananas. There's a man over here, and he's trying to tell them what they should be doing, and I'm just patiently waiting because my coupon has made the machine go defunct. I never use coupons, but it was one of those days where I was really proud of myself. I had a coupon, so I was going to wait for her. So, think about those 2 little stories, those 2 little situations. And there's a lot of components. There's a lot of stuff going on there. There's always a lot of stuff going on in my world, especially at King Soopers for some reason. But what these 2 interactions were about, in case you missed it, were relationship. The gentleman who met me at the door didn't quite know how to build rapport, to have a conversation with me, to be more successful possibly than he was being, for whatever reason. The young woman who was helping the man and woman with the bananas, with a bunch of bananas, did not clearly tell them what she was doing. The woman thought she had stolen their bananas. I mean, it literally went bananas for a couple of minutes. It was just kind of crazy. So what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be looking at that continued place of relationship, but we're going to talk about the you and I are we part of life. That means that whatever you're doing, it's affecting all of us. Whatever I'm doing, it's impacting all of us. We are in this together. We might not be having the exact same experience in the exact same way, but how we interact is critical and important to us and to the entire planet around us. We have spent a good amount of time coming out of isolation, coming out of social distancing, coming out of that place where we were on Zoom and listening to podcasts and watching YouTube videos and all of these other things. And whether you like them or not, whether you are pleased with how they work or not, we got pretty inundated with a lot of technology that has kept us separate from one another. And now we have moved back in to this place of connection and engagement and community, and we need to learn how to better connect with one another. And a really great way is this quote I have from Dr. Ernest Holmes that says, "Love is the only final security in the universe. Love is the greatest healing power in the universe. The only thing that binds people together in a community of spirit. Love." So here we are, we're looking at some of these miscommunications and these poor interactions and some of these things that just aren't working out well. And right away we know that the answer is love. And so what we want to look at this week is we want to look at how are you going to love? What are you going to do? What components are you going to bring to the arena to bring that clarity, to bring that energy, to bring that sense of belonging? I mean, don't you like to walk into a community situation like this one and feel like you belong here? That's why we talk about how you are welcome here. It's important for us to feel like we belong. So I want you to think for a moment, what do you do in a situation where you see someone that you don't know? Now, those of you in the room can look around the room and see if there's someone here that you maybe aren't familiar with. And I encourage you before you leave today to have a conversation with them. But when you're in a situation, let's say like we're setting up for Sunday service and you're out in the entry area where people are coming in the door, someone comes in the door and you don't know them, do you just turn back to the task at hand or do you walk over and greet them? These are the things we need to do. Now, we don't always want to grab their hand or hug them right away. We want to get permission because we still need to be cognizant of some of the fears and concerns that people have about how we interact. But what would you do in that situation? From the time I was in junior high school, I was that kid at church. Anybody came to the church building, any visitors or whatever, I was the one who walked over and met them. And let me tell you, if they had a cute teenage son, my girlfriends were on my case to go meet this guy and bring him over and introduce him to everybody. And so I did. So that's kind of just part of how I am and how I do things. I don't just do it to show off. I don't just do it because my girlfriends were prompting me. I did it because I wanted to be supportive of people who walked into a situation that was unfamiliar and may have felt uncomfortable. I have a story that's told by Karen Awasa. And she's talking about in 2001, on a very cold February morning, her father had come in from walking. He used to go to the mall and do his walks in the mall because it was warmer and he was older. And he got into his car and he was going to go meet some of his friends, and he wasn't particularly feeling well, and he could sense that something wasn't quite right. And so he pulled the car off into kind of a lane, a parking space, and stopped the car, and as soon as he turned the car off, he fell over and slumped over the wheel. Well, he happened to be in front of the Streets Alive mission, and there were mission people out in front of the center. And immediately, a gentleman ran over to the car and opened the door and pulled him out of the car and put him on the ground. And a couple of people went and got coats and blankets and covered him up and kind of cushioned his head. And a woman who worked there came over and began doing CPR because he was not responsive. And she continued to do that while someone else called 911. And when the first responders came to the scene and then they transported him to the hospital, she continued to do CPR until they got him into the wagon. Unfortunately, before he was ever even removed from the car, he had already left planet Earth. But those volunteers did not know that. 16 years later, his daughter joined a company group to go do some work at the mission. And they were going to do what was called a community day of service. We're all familiar with those. And she went in and was talking to people and kind of greeting people. And the pastor came out and asked her to come in his office, and she did. And she started telling him the story of her dad. And he said, "Oh my goodness, you need to go talk to Julie. You need to tell Julie your story because she kind of manages this place." And so Karen went out and she found Julie and she met her and she started talking to her, and as she's telling Julie the story, Julie's nodding and saying, "I remember." And what Karen discovered that day is that Julie's son is the man who ran over and pulled her father from the car. And she was able to meet some of the people who were there holding him and protecting him from the weather and the temperatures. And there were even people who were kind of cheering him on. "Come on, come back to us, you can do it." You know, they didn't know his name, but they were just really trying to create that energy that he was going to be okay. And then she found out that Julie was the person who had been administering the CPR. Karen was so touched and moved by the fact that 16 years later, she got to step into a semblance of community and connect with some people who were with her dad in his final moments and were able to share stories with her. That's what we're talking about when we talk about relationship. That's how important it is. Desmond Tutu says this: "We don't really get close to others if our relationship is made up of unending hunky-doriness. It is the hard times, the painful times, the sadness, and the grief that knit us more closely together." Hunky-doriness. I love that. That's my new word, hunky-doriness. I'm going to probably use that overuse that as much as I can. So we're living in these times right now. We're being pushed and prodded, and we're being squeezed into an idea or a reality, or we're being told that you should think this way or you should act this way, and there's a lot of pressure going on. And yet we want everything to be wonderful and beautiful and easy, but that's not when we connect at that deep heart level. That's not when my heart and your heart connect the deepest. It's when one of us is hurting or wounded or struggling, and we are there in support of each other. Those are the times when the deep and beautiful relationships are built. Ernest Holmes has a segment in the Science of Mind textbook, and it's entitled, "My Vibration Attracts Friends to Me." And I want to just read you a little piece out of the book, and then I have a quote from it. He says this: "I am never alone, never lonely, for For I have as companions and friends those people who are drawn to me by the ever active and immutable law of attraction. I desire to be loved. Therefore, I allow myself to love greatly, to feel warmly inclined toward people, to be interested in them and helpful in their behalf. And it is not enough that I profess that love of people. I must really love them. In other words, it's not just talk. I must really love them. I must really love them more dearly than I loved them before. I do not outline who shall be my friends and companions, for there is no desire to coerce, compel, or suggest to anyone. The law of attraction brings into contact and relationship with me all those people in whose company I find the greatest enjoyment. And then he goes on to say, as I love and cooperate with my fellow humans, so do they love me and give me their cooperation. The law is motivated to work for me by my love for people. So what this is telling us is first of all, ease up. Don't go into this huge scrutiny and discernment every time you meet someone, every time you greet someone, every time you interact with them. Let it be. Hold that space of love, hold that space of faith in the universe to bring the right people into our pathway, to bring the right people to us, and let the rest of it go and just love. Just love. How beautiful is that? I don't know about you, but that just takes a whole lot of weight off my shoulders. That just tells me there's so much less I need to do, and I can just love freely. We have discovered through science and neuroscience that the actual human brain is designed to be sociable. Your brain is looking for another brain to connect with. We are looking for that social interaction. It is a part of the dynamic of how the mind works. And what we want to look at that is we want to look at that and pay attention to that because it's natural. It's natural. And what Daniel Goldman says about this is he says, we are wired to connect. But that link is a double-edged sword. Nourishing relationships have a beneficial impact on our health, while toxic ones can act like slow poison in our bodies. So I just bring you this because we're going to go forth in faith, we're going to go forth in love, we're going to know that it's all going to work out, and yet we get to be aware. We get to be aware of how we're being treated in return. We get to be aware of how when I interact with this person, do I walk away feeling fulfilled? Do I walk away feeling content? Or do I walk away feeling empty somehow, like something has been taken from me? And just to be aware of that, because sometimes it's as simple as how you interact, not necessarily who you interact with. So this week we get to pay attention to that as well. As we look at this idea of you and I are we, do not expect everyone you come in contact to become your best friend. It doesn't work that way. We are all going to connect. We're all going to edify one another. We're all going to have amazing conversations and interactions. And then there will be times when we might not see that person again. It's that simple. Thich Nhat Hanh gives us this quote: "One simple practice, the practice of interbeing, of developing the awareness of our connection to each other, to the earth, to the stars, and to the universe itself. We are made of the same stuff, the same elements, and the same molecules." I believe this is one of the reasons why I am seeing so many postings on Facebook of the night sky and the sunset. We are looking to the heavens and we are seeing the stuff that we are made of. We are being drawn to it. We're being pulled to pay attention to it. And it's a beautiful thing. It's an amazing thing. So let's pay attention to that as well. Because in the we concept, and this is the American Sign Language symbol for we, in the we concept, it's all of us. It's all of us jointly unified connected. I found a little story about a woman who attended a retreat. Now I know many of you have been to retreats, and usually what happens is the food is incredible, the space is spiritual, and it's beautiful, and it's welcoming, and the bedrooms and sleeping conditions not so much. So she's talking about how she goes to this retreat and she just has this full day and it's beautiful, and they've been meditating, they've been doing all these incredible things, and now she's in her room at night in this bed that feels like it's made of cardboard. And she's trying to get comfortable and go to sleep, and she can't quite make it happen. And so she's kind of tossing and turning and fluffing the pillow, which doesn't fluff very well, and she's really trying to figure it out, and she keeps hearing this man talking. And it's just kind of this voice, and it sounds like he's having a conversation, and he just keeps talking, and she's not hearing the other side of the conversation. He's not trying to listen to him, but she's kind of curious as to what's going on. Where is this guy? Why am I hearing him in my room, and what's happening here? And she starts to get agitated. And as she's getting agitated, she starts to think, why doesn't he just go to bed? What is going on? Why is he interfering with my evening of wind down time? And then she takes a deep breath in, and she gets a sense of energy coming from this man where he is seeking something. Maybe he's alone, maybe he's sad, maybe he's grieving. She doesn't know what it is, but she just starts to breathe into that space and send him the energy of love. Because that's what we do, right? And within just a very short time frame, she hears him kind of take a deep breath, change his kind of tone of how he's talking, says good night to whoever he's talking to, and the silence is there. And she realizes that he was needing something, and that she could possibly fill that space for him by just sending love. And that's what I want you to think about this week. I want you to pay attention to that, of how we can do this, and how this can be so important to us, and so beneficial and so fulfilling for everyone around us, if we just tune in to the idea that we are we. So this week I encourage you to look at, how are you going to love? What are the things that you're going to do to demonstrate love to others? Our founder Ernest Holmes says this: if we listen to the heartbeat of another, we will hear the great rhythm of the universe resounding in us. Through our friends, the infinite speaks a divine language. A heartbeat. How simple. How beautiful. If you have an opportunity this week to hold a loved one and place your head on their chest, or on a child's chest, and just listen to that beautiful rhythm of life, and then to recognize that that's a language we are gifted with from the divine. How beautiful is that? And that, my friends, will help you feel that sense of absolute connection. From the moment we are born into this form, our bodies respond to touch, our bodies respond to love, our bodies respond to attentiveness. An infant's immune system begins to develop based on touch, the mother's touch, the embrace of the mom. Our heart rate can be regulated simply by someone putting their hand on our wrist, placing a hand on our shoulder, holding us in an embrace. And again, in agreement, we want to make sure that's what happens. But in those situations, in those circumstances, we are reminded that each one of us is impacting and touching another in some very beautiful, incredible way. So this week, choose your acts of love. Choose what they're going to look like and how they're going to show up for you. Pay attention to what's going on around you. How can you connect? What can you do? How can you make the world a better place in this moment, in this instant, for the one or two people that are present. How can we do that? That is what we're called to do. And so I invite you to remember that you and I are we. And let's step into prayer. So knowing right here and right now that the very power, presence, beauty, love, and light that is God is in back of all things. It is in the roots of the trees, it is in the blue sky, it is in the forming of the clouds, it is in the song of the bird, it is everywhere present, in, of, and through all things, and it lives within each and every one of us. And this being, this presence, this power within us allows us to choose to move outward into the world, to support others, to love others, to make our lives and our beings better, and then to also help pave that way for others. How blessed we are that we can do this. How beautiful it is to know that this is our truth. And so I know right here and right now that the people in the room and the people online are all blessed by God in that absolute divine perfection. And what we know right here and right now is when we speak from the place of love, we cannot speak wrong. We cannot create harm. It is impossible. So let us just tune into that and tap into that love and stand in that presence of love and know that we are united. We are unified. We are community. We are all one. I call this good. I call it very, very good. And I call it all God. And I know it is blessed and perfect. And I know it is already done in the mind of God. Because as we speak our word, Spirit hears and responds. So I just let it go and let it be. Knowing divine right action is happening in all of this. And so it is.
Time I hear a message that I get to go home with from our trusted servant, Rev. Jan. I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone on a dark clouds had me down. Gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Think I can make it now, the pain is gone. All of those bad feelings have disappeared. Here is that rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Look straight ahead, nothing but blue skies. Look straight ahead, nothing but blue skies. Don't you know? The rain is gone. All of those bad feelings have disappeared. Here is that rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, bright, singing with me. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. One more time with me. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day.
Hello. I'm Reverend Jen Wild, Senior Minister for New Dawn Center for Spiritual Living. New Dawn Center is a global community, and we welcome all people, all paths, all ways of thinking, all philosophies. So know that you are welcome here, and thank you for joining our online community.